A couple of weeks ago, we learned from the Washington Post that during his run for the presidency, Donald Trump was actively pursuing a multi-million-dollar and potentially gigantic business deal in Moscow. It would be called Trump Tower Moscow. Point person at the Trump organization working on setting up this deal was a man named Felix Sater. This is Felix Sater's business card, which, as you can see, shows him working at the Trump organization, shows his title, Senior Advisor to Donald Trump. Felix Sater has a criminal record, a fairly lurid criminal record, including spending a pretty good chunk of time in prison. He's also got lots of known mafia associations and spent a long time as an FBI informant on mafia matters. Over the years, despite Felix Sater's role at the Trump organization, there have been times when Donald Trump has conveniently denied remembering who he is or denied recognizing him. In the real estate business in particular, doing business with a convicted felon sometimes poses significant legal worries. And so a little distance can be convenient when somebody like that is in your organization and helping you set up deals. Donald Trump not remembering him or not being able to recognize him would be plausibly true if there were long periods of time in which Felix Sater was otherwise occupied, in which he had nothing to do with the Trump organization, or maybe his business wheeling and dealing for them went dormant for a time. But thanks to the recent reporting on the Trump Tower Moscow project, we now know that in October 2015, as he was gearing up to run for president, Trump himself signed a letter of intent to go forward with this Trump Tower Moscow project, the one that Felix Sater had put together. Just weeks after that, in December 2015, an Associated Press reporter asked Trump in an interview about his relationship with Felix Sater. Trump told the AP in that interview, again, just weeks after signing that letter of intent to do what could have ended up being one of the biggest business deals of his life in Moscow via Felix Sater. Just weeks after signing that letter, Trump told the AP, quote, "Felix Sater, whew, boy, have to even think about it. I'm not that familiar with him." One whole side of reporting on this ongoing scandal in this investigation, one whole side of investigating the Trump-Russia scandal has been discovering and documenting contacts and ties between Trump and Russia before and during and after the time when Russia was attacking the presidential election to help Trump win. The other side of reporting on this scandal, increasingly, is documenting and keeping track of the number of proven, known, admitted contacts between Trump and Russia that they have tried to cover up, that they have lied about. And that means members of Trump's immediate family, members of his campaign, members of his transition, members of his administration, and yes, the president himself. In Watergate, they said the cover-up was worse than the crime. In this one, it feels like the cover-up won't stop. It feels like we're all still living it now. Joining us now is my friend David Corn, Washington Bureau Chief of Mother Jones. David, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for the very generous introduction.
Well, you're gonna get more embarrassed as this interview goes on, because I want to talk to you about this book project that you are working on with Michael Isikoff. But first, I want to talk to you about Felix Sater. Donald Trump has lied about knowing Felix Sater in the past, or at least he has suggested that he's had no recollection of him, tried to distance himself from him in the past. Why do you think this time is more important?
I think this is the most important time. In December 2015, Donald Trump is the front runner for the Republican presidential nomination. That might be as surprising to him as it was to a lot of political observers at the time. He's asked about Felix Sater by the AP reporter, and he says, "I don't know him, never heard of him." Now, at the same time, as we now know, but we didn't know back then, Felix Sater was brokering a deal for him to build a Trump Tower in Moscow. For 30 years, literally 30 years, Donald Trump has tried to do business in Moscow. Many times he got close, but it never got over the finish line. He never got that Trump Tower in Moscow built. So here he was in the middle of a deal that would have given him $4 million up front into his own pocket, dealing with Russia. And what did he need to make this deal happen? The permission of the Russian government. Who's the head of the Russian government? Vladimir Putin, who is Donald Trump saying oddly positive things about throughout the campaign. Vladimir Putin. So to acknowledge Felix Sater in December 2015 would in essence be acknowledging that he was in the middle of this deal when he was running for president, when he was telling the American public that he was going to put America first, American interests over everything else, when actually he was in no position to criticize Vladimir Putin because he and his organization were asking Putin for help to build the project. This is in some ways the most massive conflict of interest that we've ever seen in a modern presidential campaign. And I think this is why this is one of the most consequential deceptions of the Trump campaign. Imagine what would have happened in December 2015. He said, oh yeah, I know Felix Sater. He's brokering a deal for me right this very moment with Russia, and I need Vladimir Putin on my side to make it happen. What do you think would have happened to Donald Trump's presidential prospects right then and there? He had to deny knowing Sater. He had to deny this deal. He kept this deal a secret. He hid this deal from the American public.
And David, I feel like I'm starting to feel like there is this mountain of not just Trump-Russia connections and Trump-Russia deals and Trump-Russia financial connections, but this mountain of documented false denials. And it includes this one from the president, but it also includes, you know, Jeff Sessions saying he didn't have Russia contacts, he did. Paul Manafort saying he didn't have Russia contacts, he did. Flynn denying he had Russian contacts, he did. Don Jr., Jared Kushner. I mean, whether they said it out loud or they put it in writing in sworn statements, and applications for security clearances, over and over and over again, it's the same thing, all going in the same direction. What does that add up to in the end? Lying isn't a crime, but consistently covering up these connections and having so many different people consistently do it, even after they get caught, where does that go in the end?
Well, even today, you know, they say over and over again there was no collusion. When we have the June 9th meeting with Donald Trump Jr. and Paul Manafort and Jared Kushner with emissaries from Russia. Now, they claim they didn't get any, you know, negative opposition research on Hillary Clinton out of the deal, but they certainly tried. That is colluding by definition, and yet they keep saying there was no collusion. You know, my concern is that we have a lot of pieces, you know, but we look at this almost as a mosaic, and we look at one piece at a time, that we often lose the big narrative picture. Not you do a good job of pulling it together, Rachel, but as media overall, we rush from one little new tidbit or nugget or revelation or new lie found out to the next one. And you got to, you know, if you sit back and you look at what he did in terms of not telling the public about dealing with Russia, what they've done about colluding when they have colluded, and, you know, throughout the campaign, Donald Trump kept saying that the Russians had nothing to do with it. His own campaign advisors knew, they were told that Russia wanted to help him. That's the big importance of the June 9th meeting. So you put all that stuff together, and it's no longer just smoke. It's fire. This is a cover-up. They've been stonewalling again and again. Donald Trump was trying to do business with Russia, and then 6 months later, Russia's trying to help the Trump campaign. It's not very complicated, but I think in our current sort of one-party rule in Congress and the White House, the political conversation doesn't really dig into what some of the big pictures are, and their implications. I mean, I think it's pretty frightening at this point.
David Corn, will you sit there for one more second? I have one other thing that I want to ask you about.
Of course.
I promise I'll make it worth your while. All right, stay right there. We'll be right back with David Corn just after this.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.